wherever you are in Africa. I know we have some friends from different continents, from Asia. I can see those from Brazil and Zambia. I can see Zambian friends, Ghana. I can see Uganda. Okay, Nigeria. There are many comrades on the call, and we are starting, of course, right now. With us today is. Can everyone hear me before I proceed? Can anyone confirm with me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. I can hear you. As you can see, we already have today we really have a special guest, and that is Mr. Maiko Zulu, all the way from Zambia, and he is a reggae musician, a human rights activist, and a recognized international labor organization child ambassador to the Zambia. His work both in the music industry and of course human rights arena is well known both locally and internationally. For those who are from Uganda, he has definitely, not only Uganda, he has definitely sung about a lot of issues pertaining justice, pertaining economic slavery, pertaining condemn. He once sang a song about condemn the killer, about murdering people. We sang about Afghanistan, and just of recent, Uganda was surprised by an artist who actually sang about Uganda is breeding. And this is what most artists here in Uganda fear to talk about. And everyone was praising his courage. If you actually go to his YouTube, you find out that many people in Uganda were appreciating. And I really say I have to research about this interesting African, because he doesn't only think about Zambia, but also other African states. Okay, so we are going to be discussing arts. We are going to be understanding how do we use arts, how do we use music as a tool for human rights advocacy. And he's going to be as well sharing with us his journey in music. And I think I've introduced him. If there is anything that I'm not talking about, of course, he's coming in to talk about that. Mr. Maiko Zulu, welcome to the Liberty Africa show, and welcome to African Justice Media.
Thank you very much, Comrade George, and thank you to everybody who is participating in this conversation. I'm greatly humbled that you decided to invite me on this very important discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, now just to let us a bit, if you could, talk more about yourself. How did you start, thinking about this, instead of thinking about women, instead of thinking about, love, you decided to think about activism. How do you get that, that feeling of start thinking about human rights, the gross violation of human rights? Why do you get that motivation?
Well, first of all, comrade, I live in an environment that is not different from the many environments that the majority of our people on the continent live in. I live in a situation where life is, determined by a lot of forces, and particularly political forces. So you find that a lot of our people are affected, by happening day-to-day happenings that are, ignited by the politics of the day. And so for me, I was inspired to really start singing about human rights when I was very young, because as you can see, I have dreadlocks. And when I was starting these dreadlocks, apparently one of the days I decided to walk to the Zambian parliament, because I got information, obviously, that a citizen could go into parliament, into the gallery and sit in and listen to the debate by the parliamentarians. So I walked quite a long way, and decided to head to parliament buildings in Lusaka. So apparently I did not know which one was the official gate and which one was the gate for ordinary people. So I had used the speaker's gate. And that time he was driving in, and I think he ordered the people by the gate not to allow characters that look like me to enter those premises. So that really stuck to me. I was a very young boy. It stuck to me because I thought, why is it that I'm being discriminated against because I have dreadlocks? I'm identifying myself as an African. So that stuck to me. And from then on, I got interested in issues of human rights, issues of people's liberties. So that really stuck to me, and it's a huge part of my music. So it's very difficult to distinguish my music from the activism that I do because they are one and the same.
Wow. That is really an interesting, point to start with. I'm also looking at, because here in Uganda, there are few artists who actually come out to condemn the injustice in the society. But that's why I wanted to know. And I know the viewers out there on our Facebook page, on YouTube, and those who are here on Zoom Live, on the Zoom meeting, they can really be asking themselves what really motivates you. But before we go too deep, we want us to understand, because we've seen many artists doing this. We've seen, not probably the first reggae musician, but this courage of reggae music trying to impact societies had failed, because remember, those of Lucky to be, remember, those artists will be in South Africa to fight the racism in South Africa. Seeing artists who have used their voices to impact and change societies. Now it's like it is coming up, and amidst the dictatorship, amidst whatever is happening, I want to tell us, how do you think we can use the activism? Because activism is not like activism. So use art to advocate for change. So in actual sense, you're doing activism instead of activism, because these are two different concepts. But how do you think we can use this music? Because these are topics that are not talked about by many media, mainstream media. But for us, we are saying we should talk about this. How do you think music could be used as a tool for activism, for advocacy of human rights, and democracy in Africa?
Well, first of all, Comrade George, music and arts in general are a very powerful tool, for perception of the mind, first of all, for communication, for, unification, even for dividing, I must say, because, we have to look at the art wholesomely, because there are positive sides and negative sides. So, we can use the art to boost activism in the sense that, arts cut across, first of all, issues like race, color, creed, tribe, if you talk of us as Africans. So there is a lot that we can do using the arts, because a lot of our people are receptive to the arts than they are even to their leaders, even to politicians. So it's very, very easy for people to sort of listen to a certain message that is coming through the art, than they would listen to a message that is coming, maybe from a church leader, for example, or, a politician, as I said earlier on. So the arts are an integral part of activism. We cannot detach the arts, because these artists are enlightening the people that follow them. So arts are a very, very important tool in activism.
Wow, I think I lost you a bit. Network a lot. I lost your network a bit. I didn't hear what you said, but let me start with what you said at first. Because when you look at states like, I can give an example of Uganda. I don't know how you do it in Zambia. How is the level of, what is the attitude of government towards you doing the music? Because here, the moment you do that music, you may find that the music is not going to be allowed because we have the Uganda Communication Committee. You see, that regulatory body that regulates what is going to be aired on the television. That's why, as online medias, that's where you find the kind of music. How do you rate in promotion? How do you promote? Because I don't know if in Zambia it's allowed, because you recently elected President Kiela Kirema, he was one of the opposition leaders. How do you do it? Is there freedom?
Well, Comrade George, in Zambia, it's not different from any other African country because, uh, politicians are the same everywhere. Politicians don't like music that is truthful, music that calls for checks and balances, music, that is questioning, what they are doing in authority. So it's not easy, though I can say that in Zambia, we have a lot of media outlets. We have obviously the state broadcaster, the Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation, which definitely, cannot play certain songs, uh, say songs that are seeming to be anti-establishment. In my youthful career as a musician, when I was starting out, I did an album called Mad President, which brought about issues of, corruption and issues of totalitarian governance. This album was literally banned, officially banned on ZNBC. So as an activist artist, you have to look at different avenues, a lot of other avenues, for example, the private media, the blogs now, though for us, when we were coming up, there was no internet. So you had no social media, you had to reach out to the people, so if you were not on the media, you had to reach out to the people. And so it's not easy for artists who bring out the truth all over, all over the world, not just on our continent, just across the globe, because, the truth is a double-edged sword. And when it comes from the artist, it has potential to reach out to more people, first of all, and to influence, the masses, especially the young masses. As you know, the majority of our countries, like Zambia, for example, the majority of the citizens in my country here are young people, the youth. And that is why you saw that in the last election that we had, the young people in Zambia called the shot, because young people decided to come out and say, we've had enough of this government, in reference to the previous government. And they came out en masse for the first time in the history of the country. We saw huge numbers of young people coming out to vote, to actually say young people can change the government. So, that coupled with the power that the arts have, it's a recipe, for revolution.
Wow, that point of President Edgar Lunga leaving into another president, this really, I know there must be atrocities that happen, human rights abuses, but there is a picture it gave to many Africans, many Ugandans. It's like the same case, just like this, the one that happened in Kenya, where the justices decided to cancel an election. So the same point that happened in Zambia, it really inspired a lot of Africans. And I say, if President Galunga can accept to be aside and accept that this election, can you try to before we go into this, what really happens? How does President Galunga, because you say that this is most African states, should we say that Zambia is a bit far from Uganda in terms of democracy? What do you think?
Well, you know, Comrade George, I'm proud to say that Zambia is actually a better case in terms of democracy than, say, Uganda. You know, because in Zambia we've gone through stages where elections are done. You know, albeit the usual government control, because when a government is in power, they have a certain leverage on an election. So despite that, we've had elections and we've changed president, and the presidents that have been there have accepted, defeat. It's all because of the power of the people. And this time in particular, the voice of the young people spoke decisively. So there was no way the previous president, President Edgar Lungu, could stay on in power. So for us, we can say it's a bit better, because I see that in other countries, they just don't release the results, or they say, yeah.
So should we really expect fundamental change just by the mere fact that the new president is Usha, and a president who was in opposition, a president who witnessed gross human rights abuses by the government? Do we expect some change? Because he himself has suffered the same. Do we expect that? Do we expect, good change? Because I'm trying to see some articles, some people are saying the new president is the same. I don't know. Because even those of Uganda, he was actually invited on a state visit in Uganda. He was supposed to meet with President Museveni. And some people were having a feeling that he should not cooperate with Museveni because of his government having a gross human rights abuse. And they were saying it should instead meet another president who thinks he is the one who won the election. Do we think of some change in Zambia in terms of human rights, respect of human rights?
Well, human rights violations in Zambia, the status obviously has changed for the better after the coming in of the new government. But obviously, politicians being what they are, we cannot go to sleep and say, things have changed overnight, because there are certain things that have not changed. For example, issues like the Public Order Act. This is a law that has been there from the 50s. It's actually a colonial law, which colonizers were using, to control our people. And this is the law that is being used, by police, by successive ruling governments, because whenever they are in opposition, they say the Public Order Act is a bad law, it must be repealed. And immediately they've come into government, the stories have changed. They think now it's a good law. So this has been the same, not just, by the previous government, even the government before. So these are some of the laws that we are saying need to change. And obviously, African presidents in general, I'm speaking about Africa because this is our home, they have too much power, too much power. So you find that a head of state, he controls literally everything, because he appoints the judges, even if they are ratified by parliament, you find that it's a parliament that the ruling party is in majority, and so they cannot go against, so all these issues are issues that border that culminate into what you see as atrocities on the continent, or brutality, or bad governance, because obviously issues of hanging on to power by our leaders cannot be ignored. You know, this is like a disease. You know, once people are elected, or sometimes even if they take over by power, by force, once they test that power, it's very difficult to give it up. So you find that, you know, leaders, especially on the continent, have come in as heroes and they've ended up as villains because they've hung on to power, you know, without regard for change, you know, without regard of thinking that, you know, the next generation that comes all the time has new ideas. They want to drive, you know, the world in a certain manner, you know. So there is all this surrounding our countries across the continent. And this has brought about, you know, a lot of backwardness on the continent, or stagnation in development. You find that people are politicking from the last election to the next election at the expense of development. And, you know, leaders take advantage of this. And, you know, they are engaged in corruption or amassing of wealth using state machinery, while, you know, people out there are politicking. So it's quite a concerning status quo for African countries.
Okay. Now, this brings us to the point of some about 3 or 4 months back, Uganda was awash with a song from Zambia, and that was "Uganda is breathing again." And I know most of Ugandans participants who are following us live on our Facebook page, on YouTube, and those who are on the call right now, they are asking. Actually, before I even ask the question about the same song, I want to make sure that I don't know if I can play that song. Let me see if I can play that song here. Definitely. Okay. I think I'll play it later. But you know, most Ugandans are asking themselves, because there's a political party which is the National Unity Platform, and even the president of the National Unity Platform actually posted your song on his Facebook page. He was recognizing the work towards activism, advocacy of human rights. I don't know, how did you get the news before even we go deep into this issue? How did you get the news about what is happening in Uganda? Because you can even find Ugandans do not even know. It's new, someone who is not from the country to speak about something that is happening in the country. How did you get that?
Well, first of all, Comrade George, for me as an African, I see no border on this continent, though I need a passport to travel from South Africa to, you know, Egypt, you know, but I don't see a border. I see us as brothers. And for me, what really prompted me to sing the song Uganda is Bleeding was not just, you know, thinking out of the blues, but I've been to Uganda when I was a young musician. I think sometime 2010, somewhere there between 2010 and 2012, I had the opportunity to travel to Uganda. And I think that time, you know, I had the opportunity, Comrade George, to meet women, you know, who were victims of atrocities, you know, by, you know, alleged atrocities by government forces. And these women, you know, had their breasts chopped, they had their buttocks cut off, you know, and you know, for me, it was a chilling experience. That trip to Kampala. You know, of course, it was for I think some conferences, if I remember. But meeting those women and, you know, listening to their experiences, you know, made me have an interest in the affairs of Uganda. You know, and for a long time, you know, I've been following, you know, the happenings in Uganda. You know, in terms of the murders that are happening, the brutality that is happening, and we cannot run away from it as a people, as Africans. These are things that we need to face head on, because the blood that runs in a Ugandan is the same blood that runs in a Zambian. So for me, seeing these atrocities and, now in the present, you see that these things are still escalating. Only recently, I think about our brother, the journalist, the Kakwenzi. When you see what happened to the brother, then you realize that in the 21st century, we still have leaders who think, brutalizing the people, their own people, is loving their people. Because you cannot say you love your people and brutalize them, shed blood, make families, lose relatives, So for me, bringing these things out in the song Uganda is Bleeding was also an opportunity to make a plea to the international community, to take an interest in what is happening on the continent. Because what we see is that outsiders are only interested in the wealth of Africa and not the well-being of the people of Africa, And when these atrocities are happening, everybody is quiet. And, as fate would have it, only a few months down the line, we have the war in Ukraine. And you've seen how, European Union, NATO, they've all come together, in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, So this is what we expect on the continent. And for me, I think we, like you were asking in the beginning, how can we use the art?
Okay, sure. Let me first play this song. If you can hear it, please you tell me. Those who have not heard about the song, and this really definitely brought out some prosumer right violations.
We live in a small world now. I think the coming in of social media has revolutionized, the way, people are interacting. Are you getting me, comrade? Are you getting me? Okay, I was saying, the coming in of social media has revolutionized, the way people are interacting. And that is why you see that information is so easy to access now. And that is why young people, again, must rise to the occasion, because, young people are, up to date with gadgets, with social media. And we can use this platform, to incite positive change across the continent, bring out these issues, let the world know what is happening, because a lot of times, we don't see these things, and if it wasn't, for people's mobile phones, maybe we were not going to know what happened in Kasese, for example, where those people were brutally murdered. You know, we were not going to see how elections, you know, were fraudulent in broad daylight. So it's very important that young people realize. And if you remember, the Arab Spring, for example, it literally it was a revolution on social media. And so, you know, in as much as we are close with physical borders, I think now is the time as Africans, you know, to really unite across the continent and speak one language, you know, the language of liberation, the language of freedom, the language of developing our continent, you know, the language of protecting our resources, you know, because, you know, as like I said, I may have mentioned earlier on, external forces are interested in our resources, yet we still remain some of the poorest people on the continent, you know. So social media has opened the space. And if you remember, in Zambia, we also used social media for the first time to protest against the previous government, you know, because when we applied for permits to protest, you know, permits were denied by, you know, the authorities. So we decided to hide in a bush somewhere and, you know, go live on social media. And the protest went ahead, and it was seen by even more people than would have been if it was physical. So the digital space is now revolutionizing even the politics on the continent. We can bring sanity to the politics on the continent using the digital space. I can't hear you, comrade.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think you were off. Yes, I can hear you now.
Thank you for that. Now, like, you know, there are artists that you actually do inspire, because I can see some of them are on the chart already, and some of them are following Facebook. And how the viewers would like to know if, because not everyone is blessed with talent. There are people who have the fear, but at least when you do the music, you use that as a tool instead of going violent, you know, advocating for what you need, advocating for justice, advocating for human rights, using violent tools, because in violence you may not win, because there are masters of violence who have the state instruments and you may not proceed. What do you think would be the role of other people who are not musicians in, you know, the struggle to achieve human rights, democracy, justice? What do they do?
Well, first of all, for people who are not artists, and I think this is the agenda that we need to drive on the continent. You don't need to be you don't need to be a celebrity or an artist, you know, for you to speak up against what is wrong, you know. So advocacy should start at household level, at community level, you know, in our mosques, in our churches, you know, in our gatherings, you know, because everyone ultimately must be able to speak, because it is you who feels it, Comrade George. You know, if you feel the hunger, it is you who feels the pain. If you feel, you know, the loss of your people through government brutality, you know, it is you who feels it best. And so advocacy must start from, you know, the grassroots level. As artists, you know, we can only ask for the support of the people, because there is a lot of intimidation against artists who decide to come out and, you know, stand on the side of the people and bring out, you know, checks and balances, and bring out what should be, what is not being talked about, you know. So if, you know, the ordinary people who are not artists, supported the artists. They are inspiring the artists to give them, that courage, because without those people, we are not the artists that we are. So those people that are not artists, Comrade George, should feel even more important, because they are the bigger celebrities. They are, the voice that makes that voice of the artist, So this is a message that should go across the continent, to say, activism is everybody's concern. If your government is stealing, don't wait for an artist, to bring that out. You can start, within the confines of your community, for example, and bring out these issues. I know it's not easy, it's a risky affair, but somebody has to do it.
Wow. That is really an interesting conversation, and I can really feel the fantastic flow of what you actually said. I can see what even the chat box, some people are trying to appreciate what you doing. And now I can see we are out of time. This was supposed to be a 1 hour discussion, and I know the conversation may not end. We can discuss all the day, but for the sake of time, I would like to, right now, if there are questions, I would like to invite them specifically.